Well, for the year-end wrap-up show, we would finish, of course, with our president, Michael Bays. He's here with us. Welcome back to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me, James. And it's been a great year for Clear Career, and I'm really excited to talk about all of those things with you and our audience out there.
Yeah, we figured this was a much better option than just throwing up a best of clip show. We put a little work into it for the listeners.
Yeah, and I think you get to hear from some of our other team members that may not be always on the podcast, and it's such a great group of folks. I'm glad that we get to highlight a lot of the folks that we work with and partner with throughout the year.
Yeah, it's kind of an easy way to break them into the podcast, so we'll get them on a longer form episode later.
Yeah, I know that there's a number of our team members who are a little bit camera shy in spite of their great leadership journey and all the people they've led. It's interesting to see how when they get on a microphone, they kind of get that shyness going.
I think one time you told me that was one of my weaknesses was public speaking, and I think you're just trying to force me to get better at it through the podcast.
Right. Well, I tell people when I was in college, I took public speaking and I got a C because it was one of my least favorite classes. When I have a chance to be in front of a large audience, it's not something that I love doing. It's not, I lay there and go, man, I can't wait to be in front of, 100 people or so. I think you try to get more and more comfortable with it, understanding your impact. And then I think understanding that folks want you to succeed a little bit and knowing that, we're all just human kind of takes the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to start it with thinking about this past year and get your thoughts on what you're most thankful for, either personally or professionally.
Personally, I think it's a wonderful year. I just added a new member to the family. A new grandson was recently born, and I'm just continually thankful for the health of my loved ones and just how God has intentionally moved this company forward to impact communities, mostly municipalities. But as we've seen, the type of group that we've brought together over the past 3 years can really serve in so many different areas that we didn't really even anticipate or know were on the horizon. I'm very thankful for the adaptability of Clear when a municipality or a government entity is experiencing some sort of issue and they need help. I love that, Clear is one of the people that they're thinking about calling and seeing if we can come in and be helpful in some way.
When you think about moving into 2026, what are you most excited about?
I think it's something that I continually talk about, but I think it's our team. It's really been an interesting journey. When we started the company with Kent Myers and Kelly Kinsler and Deanna Hendricks and myself, and the four of us really got into this to provide a service on the recruitment and consulting side. We didn't have an exact idea of what this would look like 3 years ago. I mean, you build your business plan out and you maybe look at the metrics and your competitors and all of those things. What was really intriguing is over the years, the team that has been established, and almost in a sense that we have really great people that have came to our team. And it seems like from our part, not even a lot of effort has went in. We haven't posted a position to go, hey, we need to fill this vice president role, or we need to fill this support role that is really impactful in our recruitments. It's interesting how people have just came into our circle or our network, have seen what's going on at Clear and wanted us to be a part of that. And then we're able to add them to the team and get, all of their depth of knowledge and information and experience and just their desire to serve and really channel that to the communities that need it most. That's something that is so unique about what we have and the culture that we're building here as a company.
It's funny how sometimes those things just fall into place somehow, seemingly effortlessly. By the time this airs, we would have already launched the Liberty PD assistant chief position, and listening to Chief Rick Ash over there talk about how he kind of called at the right time to get the interim placement down there in Liberty and eventually got selected to be chief. It's kind of what you're talking about, just being in the right place at the right time and making that phone call to the right person. And now he's building out a great department down there.
Yeah. We don't always get an opportunity to talk about our own faith or kind of what's actually impacting us. And I've tried to be much more intentional about that now that I'm not actively employed by a government agency. And I know we had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Del Carmen a little bit about this on a previous podcast. Where I'm at in life and having the ability to really talk about how faith impacts me, I think that's one of my favorite things. when we do a recruitment or when I'm leading a recruitment or I'm looking for an interim, I'm prayerful about, hey, can we try to connect the right person so that this community can excel and do really well? In my mind, I'm always thinking about the end user, right? And the end user is that family that is living on a street and they want to have this amazing family life where they can associate with each other and care about their loved ones and know their neighbors and go to community events and turn their water on, flush their toilet, make sure that the police come when there's a problem. And that end user is so impacted by everything we do. We don't look at just a recruitment by going, hey, we're going to try to drive 70 candidates to this position. Then we're just going to get somebody who looks the best on paper and hope for the best. In our heart of hearts, since we all have served, I think it's the ability of connecting people who have that heart of service that match the needs of a community that then can mesh together to improve the overall quality of life for the person living and working in that community. It's something that's amazing, and we talk about a lot as far as our team goes, is we're not just trying to check a box. We're trying to improve lives.
Yeah, it's easy to forget how important the services that these leaders provide, and even down to the front line, the leadership should be reminding them of how important their job is day to day, because it is easily forgotten. So, Michael, could you tell us one word to describe 2025 for you?
I would think that's impactful. When we entered into 2025, we looked and we're like, hey, we're this recruiting firm. We're starting to do a lot of consulting things. The more that developed over 2025, and we were able to partner with so many different entities from SpaceX and starting Starbase to a small community outside of San Antonio in Petite that was being underserved by a police department and helping them turn that around. I think 2026 has the real opportunity to have such an impact. We live in a world where politics have certainly drifted into our local government. We have so many things that we can't talk about with each other. Really, I think when we link leaders to organizations that can enhance the conversation in a peaceable way, help people learn how to disagree with each other better and still move towards a common goal, then we can really match the energy that is in our country about how amazing it is to be here and live in a country where we can be free, but also take on the responsibility of making our local communities the best possible place for each of our families and our friends to live in. When I look at 2026, I think the impact is something that we're really all focused on with now I think about 24 people who are involved with Clear Career in a number of different ways, and each individually having an opportunity to get in and serve a community in so many different ways.
Well, speaking of impact, what do you think, or where do you think Clear made the biggest impact this year?
Yeah, I think it's on the people that we work with. The uniqueness that we have of really understanding what it's like to be a candidate, or really understand what it's like to be a leader sitting on the hot seat, makes us a very unique firm. I remember I was reading an email that our VP of candidate relationships received recently. He had sent out just a brief email over the Thanksgiving weekend, just letting people know that he wouldn't be calling because it was the holiday week, just asking them to have a great holiday, but also saying if you need anything, feel free to reach out. He received an email back from one of our candidates that was really an awesome gesture, because he said, in all the years he had been applying for positions in the private and government sector, he had never had a firm reach out and touch him in such a personal way. And I think that the ability for us to get in and build those relationships over time is such an amazing thing to do, because we all feel like with the invention of technology and AI, we're losing our human interactions. Here at Clear, we value each individual person. And to demonstrate that and actually be able to do those things, I think sets us apart from so many other either companies and or entities in the world today.
Yeah, even these candidates that aren't the right person for that position at that time, you can help them along and hope that they will apply for that next position, because some of these people are amazing on paper, and cities are sometimes not taking people to the finalists because they just have too many good finalists, and there's so many on paper that are good that they can only take so many. So, cultivating those and continuing encouraging them to apply and make it seem like there's hope for them is an amazing part, because most places just don't have the time to do it and may not value that or may not realize how valuable that is.
I think all those positions throughout my life that I've applied for and I didn't get helped craft me into the person that I am today, because I know it's said a lot out there, but we learn so much more from our failures than from our successes. When we really put our time and energy and our best effort forward and it fails, and then taking the introspection and going, hey, where can I improve on this, continually makes you a better and better candidate. I think there's also something to be said about learning to experience joy in the disappointment. I understand one of the leadership traits that I've learned, and I'm not trying to steal one of our future questions here, but we all experience disappointment in our leadership roles, whether that's you're disappointed that a project didn't go well, or you're disappointed in an employee that you believed in and gave responsibility to that maybe didn't come through exactly as you were hoping. How we manage that disappointment and still experience joy, and then take that synergy of joy and pass it on to our teams and our community and let people know that failure is not fatal all the time, is a really powerful thing. And so I love what you say, those candidates who don't get selected for a position, take that and grow from it. Quite often we'll have 30 or 40 candidates for a position. Well, the city's only hiring one. You have 39 other people out there who have worked a long time, whether it's going to school or working at their job or continuing to grow through listening to podcasts or reading books. And all of their effort just didn't deliver the job for them. Don't lose heart in that, because I think that God has a position for you where you're supposed to be, but continue to grow through that challenge. I think it makes you a better person and a better leader.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Well, thinking about this year, was there a project or a moment that showed you the power of teamwork?
One thing that I'm really proud of is Kent Meyer's work down at Starbase. Well, Kent is the first city manager of Starbase and had the opportunity to work more directly with SpaceX in the creation of that community. Kent relied heavily upon our team. And I know, he's probably reached out to you. He's reached out to a number of members of our team to gain information on whether that's, providing additional water service, or looking at what fire safety looks like, or now even looking at what a police department or public safety looks like as a whole. It's great to see that we all recognize the value of the impact we're having there. Kent has utilized the amazing team that is Clear to really answer a lot of those questions, and I think leave a legacy for himself, having served in city management so long, but maybe one of his last professional career goals coming through in the creation of this new community, which all in all could be a literal spaceport that people are going to travel to space one day. I think is such an amazing legacy for Kent, and then also for Clear and our entire team to look back on and go, we were a small part of this, and something to really treasure in the history book.
Yeah, I'm still looking for that tour of the SpaceX facilities, though, so I don't let Ken off the hook on that one.
Yeah. He recently sent me a photo of himself standing by the Starbase city seal that they have on the wall, and so I think we'll roll that out here on social media soon. It's an awesome picture and just another reminder of how amazing this year has been for our entire team.
Well, you already referenced that one of those reoccurring themes, I think, on the podcast, that we should all be lifelong learners and continuing growing ourselves. Was there one thing that you learned about yourself or your leadership this year?
Something that I continually understand more and more is that I don't have all the answers. It's interesting, as you know, I've been working on a book project throughout the year, and quite honestly, my book should have been done by now, but going through the editor process and getting returns back, and then also working on all that is Clear, I really want to deliver a product that is going to be useful. As I've written the book and have went through the editing process throughout the year, it's always interesting to me to really look at it, and then I'll work with a leader or deal with a particular situation, and I'll go, oh my gosh, I need to change this because of this scenario that I'm learning from here. And how can I apply this, to the 7 skill sets and make that applicable to what's going on? And I think it's something I talk about in the book, that ego is a poison, but it continually reminds me that neither myself nor anybody on this planet has all of the answers. We can talk about what our experiences are. We can try to help other people, like in my case with 540 Leadership, talking about the skill sets that I've found useful, and hopefully people can look at those and maybe infuse some of that information into what they do. But there is no one answer to leadership. There's no one answer to good government. There's no one good answer. It's a collective. The fall in that is, as we've progressed as a society, we've moved further and further away from each other, leaving our leaders on an island to where they don't have the resources of being able to reach out to someone else and even just bounce an idea off of them, either whether that's shame or just not a great network or not feeling like people would be interested in your problem. And it leaves our leaders trying to solve all these immense problems that are impacting our communities with just their own information. And so I think as we move into 2026, trying to more and more make it possible for leaders to rely upon each other, rely on our team, but also just understand that collectively we can talk about our problems and we can come up with solutions that are sometimes much better than if we just decide things on our own.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. Michael, could you tell us, was there a moment this year when you felt Clear truly stepped into its identity as a leadership-centric firm?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I want to talk about on that. We certainly have launched the podcast, and I want to talk much more about that here in a minute. But the podcast is such a great avenue to bring information to folks and really just have guests, whether they're people who work for Clear or whether they are just in the profession and you bring them on as a guest, really share those experiences that are going to be helpful for other people in government and communities to do better. With the rollout of 540 Leadership, also one of our vice presidents, James Hopper, is a leadership coach and really empowering him to go out and work with leaders throughout the country on an ongoing basis to continually develop their leadership skill sets and serve at an even higher level. Combined with all those things, in addition to working with SpaceX and Starbase, I think, as I was sitting here preparing for this podcast, that's when I really realized that our leadership nature within Clear Career Professionals is one of the most awesome things that I could ever think about. When you look at our staff from Danny Kistner and Jeff Spivey, and just recently adding Brad Stafford, who has such a long history in city management, to Mark Shrives up in Montana or Leanne Gallman up in the Panhandle. And I'm missing so many amazing people that are part of Clear, but we have just, in my opinion, one of the most experienced, knowledgeable, and then just humble leadership groups that I could have ever imagined. None of these people have the poison of ego that runs rampant through their system. I think we all battle ego every single day. I think as a group and then collectively, we understand that humility is one of the foundational aspects of real leadership. It's awesome when you think about that and think about how being a leadership-centric firm empowers us to go out and make such a difference in the communities that we serve.
Yeah, we recently had Dr. Hooper on and talking about his book, Power Thinking, and that was one of the points that he made was talking about egoism and egotism. One of those is a positive trait because you have to, believe in yourself and what you do know, and then you can take it too far, just like Marcel Brunel would tell you, you can take any emotion too far and make it destructive.
Yeah. I talk a little bit about this. Humility does not mean inferiority. I think a lot of times people think that humble means that I'm inferior to something else. And that's not always the case. You can be fully embraced in your awesomeness and carry that forward in a humble way and realize that, the world isn't all about you, but you may be the world's leading expert on X. Be very proud of that and own that because people need to know that you can deliver those type of results. But understand that humility is the connecting factor between authenticity and trust. They all work symbiotically together to create synergy and motion that moves forward in a positive way.
So, Michael, Clear expanded into new service areas this year. Which shift felt the most transformative internally?
I'm really going to just look at this podcast. The ability to bring this podcast on air, which was an effort that you led for us, and I'm so appreciative of that, has empowered our entire team to share their experiences, really assist communities in a real way, but also just change the landscape of recruitment as a whole. I can't tell you how many HR leaders have approached me and said, "This is amazing what you guys are doing." to be able to hear from people that you're going to be working with or for when I'm thinking about applying for a position, it should have been happening all along, right? I can't tell you how many times throughout my career I've looked at a position on paper, saw it come through on email, and you look at, hey, what are they selling here in the brochure? And it go, man, I really, really want to work there, but not know the ins and outs of the culture that I might be working in, the challenges that I'm stepping into, how my skill sets would impact their ability to deliver operational effectiveness for their company or their community. To be able to listen to the podcast and hear the leader that you're going to be working with talk about what it's like to work with them, really, I think lets people understand, first of all, is that somebody that I think I would fit well with? Will we have a joyous synergy to achieve organizational effectiveness? But also, do my skill sets fit with the challenges and opportunities that are being presented with this vacant position? The more we zero in on that and continually developing the position podcast, I'm going to throw a trademark out here, a position cast. I'm saying it now so that we can be the first ones who've mentioned it on a public forum. So as we're applying for our trademark, we can go, hey, we've used this. But the position cast, I think, is going to shift what's possible when you're applying for a position. I want to know what culture I'm getting into. I have sometimes in my career overestimated my ability to solve a problem for a community, and I've ended up in that position, and I've done poorly there because my skill sets didn't match what that community needed. And having suffered through that, I think we were able to still achieve some good things, but I overestimated my ability to achieve ultimate success at that position. And had I known more information or maybe tuned my ego down just a little bit, I probably would have avoided that particular situation. The ability to learn what the position looks like, I think, is going to be the transformative thing moving forward. I know we highlight the position cast in all of our marketing material, and I think that it's really going to move Clear forward in a way that is going to set us so far apart, in addition to the amazing guests that you bring on, people who are some of the foremost authorities on the conversations that you're talking about, which provides, a weekly program where people can continually grow their own personal leadership and or experience effectiveness.
Yeah, it's been really fun getting it off the ground. And when you're talking about the position cast, when this airs, we'll still have the Surfside city administrator position ongoing. They're looking for their first city administrator, if I remember correctly. And even as simple as knowing the culture down there, you might not fit in really well if you're in a suit and tie every day. Like if you have to wear a suit and tie, Surfside Beach may not be the place for you. It's kind of in the title, but talking to the mayor, that may not be the best fit for you. Even small things like that, it's not just are you the best person, but are you the best person for that individual city? This is a way to get that information out to people. We hope it attracts a lot of candidates, but sometimes it's going to push somebody away that may realize like, well, that's not the skill set that I have. That's not, they have major needs in the area that I don't have, or maybe I just wouldn't even fit in with that culture. So I think it's been fun, and it's been great to talk to a bunch of people. I get to listen to the podcast 4 or 5 times while I'm editing it. So a lot of it soaks into me.
It's something that I'm really appreciative to you on talking about how we can further impact folks with this podcast. We had talked about a podcast for a little while as Clear developed, but when you came on our team and then took the ball and ran with it, we've recognized the power that is out there in the podcast. And I attribute that to you, and I'm very appreciative to your work on it.
Thank you so much. That's why I added this question in here, so you could tell me how great it is. But if there's anybody listening and you're out there in your city, or even if you're in the private sector and you have something to add to the conversation, reach out to us. We are always looking for content and guests, and whether you're an author or you're a municipal leader that's got some cool things going on, let us know, and we'll get you on here. We'll make you podcast famous.
Yeah, absolutely. As we move forward, there's been some talk of cities just going, hey, can we just get a position cast? Not necessarily can Clear run a recruitment, whether that's our recruitment support through the mid-level or a full executive recruitment. But, how do we just get on and talk about our position and do those things? I know you and I have a lot of work to do on this, but, how could we even offer just the position cast as a singular product where people still are able to get on and really launch to our large network of listeners and talk about their position and just transform the way that they're doing their recruitment utilizing this platform.
Hey, I had that idea the other day and I hadn't talked to you about it. So it must be a good idea if both of us are thinking about
it. Yeah, there's synergy there. So let's roll that out in 2026.
Can you pick one reoccurring theme from this year's episodes that best reflects the profession's direction, and what would it be?
I want to look at the AI podcast that you did and kind of looking at all that she talked about as far as what's happening with AI. I still want to have a podcast pretty early this next year about the new state law in Texas prohibiting cell phones or technology for students in our school districts. I'm still very upset about that. But when we look at a world where AI is going to transform everything that we do, and we're not talking about 5 or 10 years down the road. I mean, we're talking about 2026, 2027 being times in our culture, in our world, where AI is surpassing so much more than what we could even imagine. When I'm looking at that and I look at the government profession, I think it's going to be essential that we have a group of leaders that understand how to utilize AI, embrace the technology to improve our service delivery to our communities, but not lose the human connection and the human touch that is so important in what we do. And when you look at the clear career model, James, I'm going to tell all of our competitors on this podcast something that I hope they all listen to is we use technology on the back end of our operations significantly, but on the front end, we are very personal with our candidates, with our clients, and the communities we serve. There is no replacement for that human interaction or just demonstrating in a very personal level that you matter. I talk about this a lot, but in every human, there is the innate desire to know and be known. If we can give that to each other and we can show that there's true value in that while embracing all that AI and technology has to offer, I think we can move into a really amazing new world. But should we just shift to where AI runs everything, we will lose the most important thing that we have, which is each other.
So Clear, for the record, will not be using robocalls going forward. We're going to continue the personal calls to applicants each week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing, I was talking to a candidate the other day. He is a non-traditional candidate applying for a city manager position. And he sent his resume in and then he immediately called me because he just wanted to say, hey, I'm not going to fit your algorithm because I haven't served in government before. And I wanted to tell you, what experience I've had that I think translates really well. And I assured him, I said, thank you for the call, but we would have seen it anyway because Clear Career doesn't use an algorithm. We look and review every cover letter and every resume, and we share that information with the communities we're working with. So you don't get removed by an algorithm and a computer where we don't see it or the community never sees it, because I think we miss people that way, right? In our weekly calls where we're interacting with these candidates every single week and getting to know them, there becomes that very personal relationship. And it is our core value in that you do matter. Whether you get this position or not, we want you to be able to use your unique attributes and skill sets to impact the world in a positive way. And how can we as a firm help you do that?
Yeah. And, I certainly encourage listeners to go back and listen to that AI podcast if they hadn't, but I can tell you, I may spoil it for you, but my biggest takeaway from that, because I hadn't thought about this, was that AI is going to elevate people with soft skills. The people with soft skills generally aren't the ones that have the strongest knowledge base off the top of their head. Those people have gotten through their careers maybe without the soft skills because they just know everything. With AI being available and easy to look up answers and figure out how to do something, being able to communicate that in an effective way and provide convincing arguments about why that's the best way is going to be the most important thing. Those soft skills, the leadership qualities, the communication skills, all those are going to be doubly important as AI comes in and picks up some of the knowledge base for people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's one issue that we need to have in our schools is how do we teach our next generation how to utilize all that technology has to offer while at the same time building those communication and one-on-one skill sets. And I don't think it's an either or. I think it's going to have to be with. That's where I think our school districts that listen to this podcast and our legislators who are out there looking at how can we create more rules, let's try to see how we can tie all the technology that exists that all of our children are using all the time into a really reliable source of how do I use this and be able to communicate on a level that is far superior to anything that we've worked on in the past.
Yeah, that technology integrating into the workplace more and more has been amazing. Even in the short time that I've been in the government service, you probably got told the same thing that I did when I was in school, is that you won't always have a calculator with you. But the teachers were wrong. We definitely have that and a lot more now.
Yeah, our kids are more than capable of doing that. I think they just need people to teach them how to do that in the most effective way. I've never been a proponent of regulating things that people are going to use in their everyday life. I would much rather teach them to use it in a responsible way than prohibit it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. And prohibiting things is very difficult.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work to keep somebody from using their phone, for instance, a lot of
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you imagine that going into your workplace and going, hey, you're not allowed to have your phone? In working with the FBI and different things, when you walk into the building, you drop your phone in there, and that's kind of been their culture. And there are some jobs where it's just absolutely necessary, like national security. That's understandable. But for the most part, if I go, hey, candidate, I know you're applying for this job. I just want to let you know that if you work here at the beginning of every day, you're going to have to drop your phone in this bucket. You're not going to be allowed to use your personal phone. Think about recruitment then, right? Like, are you going to get the best of the best, or are people going to be like, hell no, I'm not working at that place, right? And so I think it'd be much better for your company to go, hey, here's what our expectations are as far as using your phone at work. And I guarantee you that that's going to be a much better culture than making a prohibition of cell phones in the workplace, right? How do we infuse what people use and rely on all the time into accomplishing our tasks at a very high level?
Well, I can't wait till we get to film that podcast because it sounds like you're very passionate about it.
I am. Yeah. I have a daughter that's in high school, and I see her suffering through some of the things, and I'm like, that dad in you comes out, and you're like, man, I want to fight the fight. Let's roll.
Well, she's the nicest kid, and she shouldn't have to worry about that. I can't imagine that she's trouble at school, so that shouldn't be a big worry for her.
Yeah.
Clear has just recently celebrated its 3rd anniversary of being a company and doing some great things out here in local government. Has anything surprised you in the past 3 years, either in a good way or a bad way, or maybe both?
One of the surprises that kind of led me to write a book on leadership was with all of the leadership information that's out there and exists in the world. And as much as we talk about leadership on a very real level, there is a lack of leadership still in our field. And that surprised me because in your own world, maybe surrounded by folks who are great leaders and are thinking and they're practicing good leadership skill sets and they're always constantly growing. But when you break out of that silo or break out of that bubble and you look across the spectrum at what's available for leadership throughout our country, basically, there is a huge fall off on that. And it's not because there are not good people or that there aren't good leaders. I really feel like we've done a very poor job of giving skill sets to good people that they're then able to transition into leadership characteristics that are exhibited in their day-to-day organizations and how they handle their folks. More and more recently, I've been listening to leaders who will tell me, well, we don't have any problems here. Nobody ever comes and tells me about a problem. Everything is going perfectly. I can't tell you the number of leaders I've talked to recently while we're doing our org reviews who say that. And it's amazing to me that I'll look beyond maybe their perception of the organization. And there are significant failures that are causing very real problems on an operational level, but the senior executive is never hearing about that. And it's not to point out the senior executive and go, hey, you're a bad leader or anything like that. It's that they're never getting the information about the problems that are occurring that are impacting, their service delivery in whatever department that they're in. How can we bridge that gap and really get back to the basics? I remember, a movie, it was called Remember the Titans. It was a football movie, right? It talks about how that team was successful. And I think the coach only had like 2 or 3 plays in the playbook. But his thing was we are going to run these 2 or 3 plays perfectly, right? And so when we really look back at what we've done and all that leadership has grown, the amazing authors out there from Simon Sinek to Brene Brown, Stephen Covey, John Maxwell, these are amazing leadership authors. They talk about so many creative ways to apply your leadership, but it's the basics that are failing, right? Like that communication we talked about. Like if people are not talking about problems in your organization, it's because they're not talking to you about problems in the organization. It's not because there's not problems. How do we really break that paradigm and shift that to a way where we can focus on the basics, get those right, and then we can talk about the 5 levels of leadership, right? If I can't talk to you, it doesn't matter what level we're on. It still is going to be a failure when we're trying to deliver a high-performing service to the people that we say we're trying to serve.
Yeah, there's, so much information out there, but I think you're right. Getting back to those basics, and a lot of the times I'm watching, and I think you said it's a communication thing. People can't or won't or don't communicate effectively enough with each other, and it leads to problems that exist, and the person that can fix them don't even know about them. Well, before we wrap up, I've got one more question for you, but do you have anything that I haven't covered that you want to talk about?
No, I think it's been a good program. It's not that I like to talk a lot, James. It's just that I do.
Well, I mean, we got to cover at least once a week. So, you're welcome to come on and talk about anything you want to anytime. I'll leave you with this. If you can pass on one lesson or encouragement to the leaders in local government that we know work really hard day in and day out through very challenging times, can you give them some encouragement or some advice that will help them in the new year?
It's really important. We're always looking at our hope for the future. Most of the people involved in government throughout our country, and I would venture to say probably throughout our world, is if you're in some sort of government industry, you have some sort of belief that you love serving others. At some point in your life, whether it was your own personal traumas or experiencing something where you just thought your community could do better, you ingrained in your core just a value of, I want to give back to something greater than myself. And I think as we get into government and we see that the operational monotony, sometimes the failure of leadership, the over-reliance on written policies and procedures, it just beats us down. And then over the last few years where we get into a political environment that a lot of our elected leaders are trying to make changes in a very toxic way and not relying on, their best nature about how they should treat each other. Treating a political opponent poorly then blends into treating the people who work on your, government teams poorly. And it just continually bleeds throughout the organization, having a more and more negative impact. I just want to say, maintain the hope. There's people who understand what's happening. There's people who are trying to make an impact in that, whether it's Chad Wright, Marcel Brunel, Joseph Turner in a different way, just by highlighting and talking about these topics. And then people with our firm with Clear Career, 540 Leadership, the ongoing, coaching with James Hopper and some other members of our team. The hope is very real. I think if we really look at this, and at the end of the career that you continually have, if you look back and just see the positive impacts you've had and the people that were impacted by your service, it would be all worth it. How much more, after we look back and see the impact we've made, should we be inspired to continue forward in a very real and empowered way to continue to shape service and service delivery to the communities that we care and love so much?
Yeah, it's a very powerful message, and I think we all need to be reminded there's hope. There's a lot of good out in the world, and you can be part of it and continue helping move your community forward. So thank you for that message. Well, this will wrap up our year 2025 with Clear and a clear voice. We appreciate everybody listening and being along for the ride with us this year. Continue to follow Clear on LinkedIn and catch the podcast on your favorite platform. Like and subscribe, and we will see you in 2026. Catch you later.